Hey everyone, Chronowalkers here. I'm Eric L, joined with,
Shenanigans!
and we're here to bring you a gameplay video. So this is gonna be pretty cool because it's gonna be showcasing the deck that I brought to the Compete Sport Circuit event a couple weeks ago, and it's gonna go against the deck right in front of you right now, Tashir Hammer Time, which is a deck we just released a deck tech for. So yeah, Shenanigans, you are the one that played this deck, so why don't you start off and kind of give us a little rundown of this deck?
Yeah, so this deck is loving Tashir's awareness. We've got Tower Sphinxes to give us some other range summons. We can keep on poking people from far away. Diving Juke, which we highlighted in our video as a great pairing with Tashir as well. And then, of course, Knockback. I think Eric can be quoted as saying, Knockback makes Tashir. It's a card we're very excited about that just, people trying to come at Tashir, they're a bit more reckless because they kind of think, oh, this awareness around you, like there's nothing you can do with your normal attack. So it's like one little bit of free movement there. So yeah, but knockback knocks him right back into your awareness. So that's great. And then we have Ajna Tiger, Bolt Shot, and Rope Tornado as our awesome haymakers. Ajna Tiger just messing with turn economy and letting you choose at the very last moment whether you need to mess with turn economy or not on every round.
Yeah, that's a pretty good rundown. Yeah, let's take a look at Bazin Wormstrike.
All right, so we're very familiar with this one.
Yeah. All right, and here we have the Bazin Wormstrike, the 5-0 10-1 in the Swiss rounds of the circuit. Let's not worry about the top 8 right now. Yeah, so this one is the deck that I brought to the circuit. Just a couple of quick points. We, of course, in Axon, we have our Epiphany dedicated studies because they're just incredibly strong cards that allow you to just fill your hand with cards and then have some great card selection. We showcase some stats in our tournament report if you want to go check that out. And yeah, then we just draw a bunch of cards, get a bunch of emergent worms, surround our opponent, and just kind of burn them out while also playing, pretty aggressively because we have our warp strikes and chronowalkers that allow us to dodge attacks. And of course, tsunamis to kind of clean up those pesky small summons that our opponents, try to play against us.
Yeah, Tsunami is just a great catch-all,
Hmm.
just like a good base, and then you can fine tune in your sideboard. I will say this game was recorded as part of our testing for the circuit, so we don't have the changes that we mentioned we wanted to make in the tournament report video yet because this was recorded prior to that circuit.
Hmm.
But still a solid deck.
Yeah, and I will also kind of point out that we were learning our decks. So, if there's going to be some mistakes, we'll try to point them out to try to help you, see what we could do better, what went wrong, and, learn from it and as we go forward. And I
Yeah,
think,
learn from our mistakes so you don't need to make them.
yeah, and
Let us
and
make mistakes for you.
and yeah, you'll see the mistakes and you'll realize that like that practice, that testing, the playing the game is going to really help you learn. It definitely helped me a lot when I was down there playing in paper. But anyway, let's get to the games.
Yeah.
So here we are with our gameplay. Let's take a look. I'm on Bazin. Shenanigans is on Tashir. You can see my hand in the lower part of the screen, and Shenanigans' hands on the left side of the screen. It's a little awkward, I guess, but that's all right. We'll make it work until we get a better, more watchful client.
Wasim, save us.
But yeah,
No, also Wasim is furiously working on the spectator mode. All the love to him,
mhm.
and not rushing him at all because we know these take time, and we love that he's doing it for us.
Yeah, not rushing at all. Now get it faster. Let's go. Let's go. All right. So yeah, so you can see starting hand, I've got Epiphany dedicated studies and Tashir has two hearty soups. So, good luck. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, I'm just kind of rearranging my hand from, low chi to high chi as one should, and if you don't, then what are you doing? And yeah, Epiphany. Some difficult decisions right here. But yeah, I mean, what goes through your mind when you see an epiphany?
Oh, through my mind, it's like, oh no.
Yeah.
Especially when I'm looking at my hand, right? Which is like, it's okay, but it's a little low. It's all sparse on the chi side,
Mm-hmm.
right? I've got 1 5 chi, 2 4 chis, 2 3 chis, and 1 positive chi, like one that's
Yeah.
above 5. So like when you're looking at that, and then your opponent starts just crafting the
Yep.
perfect hand,
And
it's a little
pause right
sad.
here just to kind of indicate like I play my dedicated studies and I discard a Caboose and then a Tsunami. So that means my second worst card in my hand was Tsunami. Just
Yeah, so that's terrifying.
yeah. So yeah, we see.
Psychological damage. The emotional damage meme. Maybe we can just
Mhm.
read that in. I don't know.
But yeah, and then we see you run up, try to diving juke, and so you realize, right, that this is a misplay. If you want to talk about that. Hmm.
But yeah, I use a diving juke. So I use that aggressively because the concept was that I was thinking that maybe I want to just get in range faster and start getting some damage out. Start using my, like use the diving juke to get one more turn of 3 damage from Tashir. So I thought, okay, move up one, do as a diving shoot. Got Tashir's awesome awareness, and the side points on it let Tashir use the 3 damage action right on turn 1, even though I'm 1 space to the side. But yeah, in hindsight, as you play through, yeah, I should definitely, with how reactionary Bazin is and with how he jumps around the field in this deck nonstop, definitely should have saved that for actually making sure like something happened
Yeah,
later on.
exactly. And I'll say this is something I pointed out in the kind of the deck tech for Tashir is that leaving attacking with like the side of your awareness is kind of tempting, but now you've left your side kind of wide open, right? You want to be able
Yeah,
to you actually want to attack like one space away so that you can use your knockbacks because now as we see as we play this, I'm going to move 2 spaces up and attack you from the side. Um
yeah.
and
So it was
so
greedy. It
yeah.
was greedy of me, right? Like I should have just like it's 1 less damage, right? So just double
Mhm.
move forward if I'm
Mhm.
not summoning anything, and
Yeah.
just you get 2 damage instead of burning a card to get
Yeah.
1 more point of damage.
And we see here that you rope tornado. So keep that in mind. It was rope tornado. I accidentally took it off the stack. But just so keep that in mind. And then I immediately shut that down. No rope tornadoes in this house.
Yes, definitely wanted that rope tornado too.
Yeah.
That was my only
Yeah.
positive G card when
Yeah.
he's 6 or
Exactly.
higher.
And having your HE getting shut down by 3 Qs is really devastating. Then you have your diving juke here, right?
Yeah,
And so you could just run away. So I was like, oh, he'll probably just either run away or maybe he'll go up to the top left and just hit my emergent worm. But you made the another greedy play this time, as we'll see. You're debating it. You just go kind of in the middle to try to hit both of us with your rope tornado.
yeah. I'm kind of trying to make sure that the card I played, resolves, because it's like so much added value if I pull that off.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah, but you had your 2 knockbacks, so you thought maybe you could do something about it. Unfortunately, I have
yeah,
my 4 warp strikes, so
yes.
um
So,
yeah, we'll see what happens. It's not. This is a quick game.
yes, Epiphany.
Epiphany, yeah, exactly. Epiphany
Correct.
dedicated studies turn 1. It generally leads to games like this. And
Yeah,
yeah, you can see my full thoughts on Epiphany just based on my experience at the circuit in that
yeah,
tournament report. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of this is basically what happens when you can get that like crazy starts, right? We have a big stack. I played a warp strike, you put a knockback, but I just out warp striked you, and then the warp strikes still stay. So your knockbacks are basically useless because I had more warp strikes than you, while my warp strikes still go off, and I can still get that damage. So now I'm hitting you for a bunch of damage.
yeah,
And then I figured because once all these warp strikes resolve, I figured because you basically stopped after that second knockback, you didn't really have anything left. So which is true, you had 2 hardy soups. I've got these 2 emergent worms, and so I'm just like, all right, using Bazin's reality master to just like surround you basically. And you just get trapped in and can't move.
yeah. Absolutely. And then like this is punishing Tashir's awareness. This is
Hmm.
why we love diving juke so much, for Tashir.
Yeah.
But looking at the hand size at the end of it, like we're both down to 2 cards. Well, 2 cards and 1 card. Bazin has three threes attacking, and kind of knows I don't have the rope tornado because obviously I would have played it if to try and get rid of that previous stack. So don't need to play around that anymore.
Although keep in mind that rope tornado does cost you 2 life.
Yes, but emergent worms will cost me a lot more.
True. But anyway, so let's look at sideboarding. So this is the sideboarding UI from Coliseum of Fate. It's actually kind of interesting. You can kind of see, move up and down, and it helps you do the math. Yeah, so after that quick game, we do some forethoughting. This is actually what I like to call post-forethoughting because it's after the fact that you're pre-thinking, right? That's a terrible joke, but there you go.
Wait, it's just normal thoughting.
Yeah, exactly.
Forethoughts and future and past and present. Okay, yeah. So this is just thoughting.
Oh man, all right. Ramble. Let's go. I'll be here all week. So 5 deceits, -2 dedicated studies, -2 tsunami, up 3 chronowalkers, -2 epiphanies. I knew that he was going up aura purges, so I wanted to go down some dedicated studies and epiphanies to not be hit by those.
So for me, probably controversial. So I'm removing rope tornadoes. I'm removing some tower sphinxes, a couple hard to use knockbacks, and some Ajna tigers. Eric is juking me by removing some dedicated studies and epiphanies. No respect.
It's like I built both these decks. So
yeah, it's almost so he has perfect information. But yeah, I'm trying to remove stuff that I feel isn't quite as good. Ajna Tiger, maybe that's a bit more controversial because it is something that requires multiple hits from the emergent worms to kind of interact. But I'm trying to fit in the parries and the aura purges. I think a parry might be reasonable because it can't be hit by any aspect emergent worms.
Yeah, so all I have is tsunami.
Yeah, I'm trying to chase down Bazin, and I mean Bazin removed a tsunami, so I guess we kind of both juked each other a little bit.
Yeah, and this is something I've been theorizing about the parry pivot in fighters.
Yes.
If you are kind of low on summons, you might bring in your parries in games 2 and 3 to take advantage of the fact that some people will go down their tsunamis and bolt shots, stuff like that. So it's something to think about. But yeah, let's get to game 2.
Yeah.
All right, so game 2, you're going first. And let's see what we have to start. Ooh, look at that. Is that an epiphany dedicated studies I see?
It is. And is that an aura purge at IC?
Who cares about aura purge?
So for me, I move up. I'm just going to hang out here. I don't need to get too close. I know Boston's going to come for me.
Yeah, and you play that parry in the front because you know they can't really deal with it. So you're like,
yeah.
All right, so yeah, and then here we go. Very quickly, I play my epiphany because I'm like, all right, cool. You're like, nope, aura purge, you want to get me. You're so happy about it too. And then I'm just like, all right, deceit. And this is why deceits come in, kind of like an extra way of getting around aura purge.
Yeah, you want the 1 Chronowalker, the 2 emergent worms, or a single deceit are all ways to kind of deal with aura purge.
Exactly. Yeah, and again, this is why I brought this deck, because it was a powerful epiphany based deck that wasn't cold to aura purge, so I felt like it was a good position to do well.
Yeah, and Eric knows that I don't have a second aura purge in hand. I played it in response to the deceit.
Yep, exactly.
Or after deceit resolved, I suppose. I would have let it resolve and then try and put an aura purge there.
All right, so I drew 3 cards and I got an emergent worm, which is kind of nice because it allows me to pretty easily clear this aura purge that you play under me. And also, don't worry about how the stack looked. The deceit interface doesn't really work, so just assume that it was the epiphany. So yeah, yes. And so I drop down this emergent worm. It hits the aura purge, and then that means next turn I can kill the aura purge. A way to put a little bit of pressure on the board and deal with this aura purge.
So yeah, what are you thinking? Because like with this play, you're obviously valuing the 8 aura of the that the aura purge would tax you if you tried to leave pretty highly.
I think it's a combination of getting rid of the aura purge and also just putting a 3/3 on board, right? I get a little bit of value out of it, and I just have it there to kind of help get my turn economy going, having a little bit of pressure. So yeah, so I had that good start with the Epiphany, and I still have a dedicated studies, but I think coming up is going to be a play which heavily cost me and might have lost me the game. So let's take a close look. So yeah, you double move, hit me for 2. It's fair enough. And I see that Pari. I'm like, oh, I can't deal with it at all. What do I do? So I for some reason decide to move forward. I believe. There you go. Move forward and play dedicated studies. So I play dedicated studies, and I draw into Tsunami. So I'm like, okay, cool. I can clear your Pari. So I discard. What do I discard? Try the Cabus and the Warp. Okay, makes sense. And then here, a Chronowalker and Tsunami to kill your Pari and hit you for 3. And so like this is a huge misplay, right? Like
Yeah, this is an aggressive
yeah,
Tsunami.
yeah, because I'm basically spending 35 aura to kill your 12 aura Pari and 2 cards. Because next turn you can just walk back and then kill my Chronowalker because you're going first.
Yeah.
So it was a huge waste of card advantage, right? I spent 2 cards to do that. I dealt my own Chronowalker 3 damage, and then you just clear it, for free, basically. So, yeah, it was not a good play. Like, normally, if I play Epiphany turn 1, I have a very good chance of winning, but because I just kind of threw a bunch of my advantage away, now, we're kind of even.
Yeah, like we're just looking at the aura, right? So by my turn, we're basically equal. You're 84, I'm 78. I'm 40 cards in deck, you're 36 cards in deck. I've got a slightly higher life total, and you've got 1 card on the board, and I guess ahead on cards. It's 5 versus 4.
Yeah, exactly. And now you just kill my Chronowalker, and so now here's another misplay that I make. I run up to you and just kind of open with a Warp Strike. Because I have 3 in my hand, and I'm like, okay, so I could probably get a bunch of damage going. I kind of waste my cards in this way, right? So, again, this is like one of my early games playing this deck. I'm kind of spewing at value and not playing it properly. So just keep this in mind.
No, yeah, and I think this is like it's completely reasonable to be doing this because like this is what learning a deck is, right? Like you have to try out these lines even if they're bad because you need to know how bad they are, right? Like Eric's feeling in a great spot with the 1 Epiphany and the dedicated studies that was played this game, and like a bit more board presence, like just up 1, but like you've got to try these out and see how bad they are when you push the limits of your deck, so that you know when it matters whether
Exactly.
you can.
Yeah, it's called limit testing. So try this. I try to Warp Strike, you knock me back, I Warp Strike again. You're like, okay. You let me do that, and then you diving juke, and then boom, you get away, and I decide not to Warp Strike because I realized I kind of like wasted some of my cards there. But yeah, I got no damage out of it. I lost a bunch of my cards. I'm kind of low in energy now. Half my deck is gone, and more than half of my aura, and you're still at basically full health.
Yeah, and I'm like, I guess trying to think of a good timing to dump an Ajna Tiger down on you. Probably want to get that emergent worm if it comes close. Is a primary target for that guy.
Oh yeah, and then here, also one thing to keep in mind, if you look here, I put my water attack on the stack, and you're like, what are you doing? There's no one in front of you. In testing, you want to be able to play the deck. You're going to make mistakes, but you also want to find out how the deck does when you're playing it properly, if that makes any sense. So I forgot to attack him before he diving juked. So we talked about this, like, if I was playing properly, I would have attacked him before diving juked. So, that's just something to keep in mind. Like, if you're just playing for fun, hanging out, whatever. But, like, when you're testing, you want to make sure that the deck is performing properly. So don't worry about, like, doing takebacks or something like that.
Yeah, like there's kind of 2 phases to testing, right? There's the first phase where you're trying to figure out if the deck is good, which means, like, we want to do those take-backsies, even, like, multiple rewinds, so that we can see the best from both decks in terms of what, you're not at a tournament, so don't get tied to following everything exactly. And then once you're happy with the decks, then you start not punishing yourself, but you hold yourself to the higher standard so that your repetition and when you make mistakes, you are feeling the consequences to help get those memories locked in and understand what you need to remember and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Not too much is happening right now, right? Like you hit me for 2 of the Tower Sphinx. I didn't want to move my Emergent Worm up yet until you were unexerted because you can just kill it. And that's actually a key thing is because you have that 3 damage heavy attack, you could just one-shot my Emergent Worms. And that was a key part in these last 2 games.
Yeah, like we're kind of in the mid game here, kind of jockeying for position back and forth. Like we're both down to a few cards in hand, roughly the same resources. So just trying to figure out who is like the aggressor and who is the defender here.
Yeah,
because we're not even sure.
Yeah, and so here's another reason to not kill that Tower Sphinx. So you go to try to hit me with your 3 damage heavy attack, and I just warp. So you can warp strike off of the Tower Sphinx and then hit you, right? So you can get some damage going.
Yeah, and I'm not in the best spot for doing a counterplay to kill that Emergent Worm. So now Eric feels comfortable bringing it in to murder a Sphinx.
Yep. So I hit you for 3. And then I get my Emergent Worm to, kill your Tower Sphinx. But now is the perfect time, right, for your Tigers. So this is like...
Exactly. This is the moment I was waiting for.
Yeah, so this is why Tigers are so good. Like, you've had it for a while, and you were waiting for the perfect moment. And now I'm unexerted. I've got 2 cards left. And then there's a nice, juicy Emergent Worm ready to just, get killed by your Tiger.
And very carefully playing this at the end of the Emergent Worm's turn so that we aren't in the end of round and Tiger does in fact get a turn generated for it and then it comes in. And I'm feeling pretty good about that.
Yeah. This is something to keep in mind. It's a mistake only non-champions will make, All right, yeah, so you kill my Emergent Worm. Very sad, but that's okay.
I mean, I'm okay. I'm okay about it.
Well, we're even on Aura.
On Aura, I just noticed that too. 57 each.
But I've got 15 less cards in my deck. So this is another thing testing in Coliseum of Fate. You don't really get a feel for like how many cards left you have, even though you see the number. Because when you play a card, you're not actually like paying the cost, taking the cards out of your deck, lowering your Aura count. It doesn't have the same like cognitive effect on your mind.
Yeah.
Ooh, and then I draw an epiphany. So I think I see that epiphany, I get like, not deer in the headlights, but like I'm like, oh, this is amazing, easy free win. But again, I'm low in Aura, so like going down to 47 Aura and then drawing 3 cards, that means I can play like 3 cards left in the game, and then that's it.
But I think it's still correct here. It's still not too late.
Because I've got Emergent Worm and Chronowalker. That's 28 Aura. That's half my Aura right there. There's definitely an argument that it's not a good idea, but I do it.
Oh yeah, actually, because of the specific numbers involved, I think you're right. Because playing it puts you down to
because I have 11 cards left in deck.
Yeah, so it puts you to 47. Which is so that's 28 plus 11 is 39. So then you'll only have an 8 Aura. It's close.
Yeah, and my hand is good. I'm like, oh, I can really win here, and then I notice my like resources left, and I'm like, oh, oops. But yeah, so let's see what happens here. Yeah, you move back, try to hit me for 3. I warp strike this because I want to get rid of your Ajna Tiger, and I don't want to take 3 damage.
Yep.
So
the 5 health of Ajna Tiger.
Yeah, exactly.
Just making things awkward because Bazin's has 1 attack. Most of the deck does 3 damage for Worm Strike. So 5 is
Yeah, so I'm like, oh nice, I don't take any damage. I remove your attack from the stack because I'm like, oh, it's fine. And then you just Diving Juke, and I'm like, oh. So yeah, Diving Juke showing, its power here. Like we said in the first game that you didn't really want to play it offensively, but I think now is a decent time to play it offensively. because like I'm low in
Yeah.
resources, and now is the time to like kind of press your advantage and try to kill me.
I mean, should you have warp striked to the other side of the
I can't.
Ajahn?
I can't warp. Oh, other side of the Ajahn Tiger is what you're saying.
Yes, yeah. Should you have
Maybe.
warp strike to the
The
left side?
reason I didn't is because of this emergent worm. I wanted to play emergent worm and kill it. But I think this is also a mistake too, and me not really having that much experience against Tashir, because then you just take one step back and kill my emergent worm for free, right? So I basically just spent 2 cards to kill your Ajahn Tiger, and then you spend 0 cards killing my emergent worm. Which is why like we keep saying Tashir is like a control archer. Like you can like freely remove your opponent's summons, and you just keep getting that free value almost.
Yeah, the size of the awareness is just nuts.
Yeah, and I couldn't warp off of the tiger, which I wanted to do, because then I would lose the game. So, but yeah, I mean, I still have a chance. I'm like, okay, I've got these 2 emergent worms. You're gonna kill this one. I'm gonna run up to you. I'm gonna try to trap you in and hope that you don't have a knockback or diving juke, which is obviously a big ask considering that that's like most of your deck. But I was desperate here, so I run up, try to emergent worm you. You, of course, you knock me back. I get my second emergent worm. I'm like, all right, I'm all in. I got nothing left. I'm gonna try to kill you with what I got. So yeah, hit you for 3. And let's see if I remember to basic attack you before I get knocked back. So yeah, and while we say like, oh, when you're doing testing, you know, takesy backsies is fine. You know, it's always good sportsmanship if you're playing, you know, with friends casually. Like, you know, sometimes you let people take things back, but you know, try to keep up on your things. And like, I should have obviously attacked there, and like don't constantly whine about it if somebody doesn't let you take things back, right?
Yeah, it's more of a like make sure everyone's on the same page for what is the purpose of the testing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so here I move it back. I attack you for 1. I'm like, oh, I forgot, you know, and then I get pushed back.
Yeah, because we're trying to figure out what the actual, you know, strengths of the decks are.
Yep. So yeah, so I basically have nothing left. I'm at 7, you're at 11. I've kind of trapped you in, and I'm hoping you don't really have anything. But thing is, you're going first, so that means you can just move back and kill that emergent worm for free. And this is, you know, again, a huge issue that I have. My emergent worms basically are just 3 damage burn spells against you, especially going second.
Yeah.
And so here's a decision. Here's an interesting thing. Should I have played around diving juke and moved up 1 space with Bazin?
That is interesting. Yeah.
It was something I hadn't really thought about, but as we see coming up in a second, I'm gonna try to attack you with Emergent Worm. I'm like, okay, good. I get my 3 damage in, and you're just like, nope. Diving juke. So you know, there's an argument that like to play around another diving juke, I can take 1 step forward with Bazin, kind of trap you in there, and then you can't kill my emergent worm because you can't double move and then do 3 damage.
Yeah.
So then here I am hitting you for 1. And so, you know, this game was actually surprisingly close, all things considered. Like, I thought I had no chance here, but we actually talked a lot through steps and stuff like that. And we can see your hand, and your hand's not great.
Yes.
But yeah, you do this, you hit me for 2. Because you can hit my Merchant Worm, but it doesn't really make sense. And so, move my Merchant Worm right in front of you. I had originally moved it to your side, but that would just allow you to take 1 step back and kill it. This way kind of abuses Tashir's awareness, because now you're trapped against the wall, and you can't really, you know, move back and shoot me. You have to move to the side.
Move up. Got a water attack off.
Mm-hmm.
Let that happen.
Yep, down to 6. And now you don't have to worry about any cards in my hand, and we actually see something pretty important here. You have a Hardy Soup, which actually puts you out of that divisible by 3 range.
Yeah, Hardy Soup just being really, really solid card. Although with no energy cards in hand, I'm gonna have that 1 energy saving for the rest of the game until the next energy card I play it.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the funny things about Hardy Soup is it just waits forever. to give you that reduction, which is very nice of it. But I'm feeling pretty good. I've got 57 aura, I've got 15 cards. Bazin's got basically 1 turn to try and win this game. And like 7 life isn't ideal, but Bazin's at 5, so
yeah.
And with 2 Tower Sphinxes, which are both going to come down in this turn, I'm feeling pretty good about getting Bazin.
Yeah.
I'm going to haul a little bit on where they should go, and
yeah,
putting them, I think, both next to each other on my right.
And so here's here's a thing that we talked about. Like originally you put them like this. However, if you think about this, now I can move my Emergent Worm, attack you, and you can't move back and attack.
Yeah, exactly.
and then you kind of stuck there. So, and this is also we're not necessarily playing to win. We're trying to play to the best deck's best thing. So we're constantly talking to each other about like best plays. And so after talking about this for quite a bit, I think I convinced you to move it to your right.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically the reason I put one behind me is because I'm going to standard like operating procedure, right? Like get a summon, put it in a protected space because like generally champions can protect themselves better, and summons you want them to last for a bunch of turns. But Tashir, that space behind Tashir is so important, always keeping that open.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just like, oh wait, hold on, we're not on a normal awareness here.
Yep.
So let's get that Tower Sphinxes in a better spot.
And I liked how you said standard operating procedure, and I think doing testing like this is very important to kind of break that standard operating procedure habit that a lot of people have, where you just kind of get stuck in a rut, and you just you just kind of like do standard best practices, for lack of a better term. And it's not always the case. Sometimes it's good. Most of the time it's good. That's probably why you do it. But every once in a while, it's not. So here we go. So I'm at 2. I basically use my Emergent Worm to block you. But you can just, because you're going first now, I'm stuck in a corner. You've got your 2 summons. I got nothing. You take 1 step back. You kill my Emergent Worm. And then then you just hit me once with your Tower Sphinx, right? And I can't really do anything. So
yeah, with you being so low in resources, and like this kind of line is, I'm sure Eric saw this line coming. It's pretty like expected. But I mean, Eric kind of has to do the best with what he's got, and trying to force an end to the game is kind of how it has to go. I mean, this does force me into that line of play as well, because I can't move one of the Tower Sphinxes first. I don't want Tashir to go to 1.
Exactly. If we go to forethoughting for our third and final game.
Well, I guess just before we say this, I guess I'll just say something here. So, and I think you're absolutely right, Eric. I think the turning point of the game really was that tsunami that dealt 3 damage to your own Chronowalker. Maybe, I mean, Pari is scary for sure, but Bazin does have a lot of movement, and potentially there are ways to like kind of maybe pivot around with your movement tech and your own summons, or who knows, like any side play.
One thing to keep in mind is I can't warp strike off your parries too, right?
Yes, yeah. So like you'll need to be sorry, I guess I should say that for people watching. Yeah, like the non-targeting parry also prevents targeting for warp strike. It's not like aerial where it cares about what it is. It's just no targeting, sir. But yeah, maybe just like taking a slower line and not feeling let the panic come in might have been just like 1-y the game. Who knows?
Yeah, it was definitely I think you're right. Yeah, because it was actually surprisingly close at the end there. All right, so if we look at forethoughting for our last game, you kind of stick with the same idea. I think you actually instead of going down the Azure Tigers, you go down Bolt Shots instead, and I keep in my tsunamis because I don't want to die to parries. And then I go up some pressure points minus shutdowns because I knew you took out rope tornadoes the previous game, and so now I'm more interested in stopping your like knockbacks and diving jukes. Bolt Shot is possible, but
So Bolt Shot might be a controversial card to cut here, but I just really liked the texture, like the 5 health of those Ajna Tigers, plus being able to. Bazin loves having that reactionary space, so I wanted to take a bit more back of the reactionary space. So instead of going down the Ajna Tigers, especially since I'm now going second, not first, it felt even more important to have ways to interact with those with 5 health, so they don't just die to a single Bazin attack plus Emergent Worm.
So yeah, let's see. Final game.
Yeah.
First 2 games relatively quick. The first game very quick. The second game, little fast. But this one is gonna be a good one. So you see, I'm going first. I move to the right. I do have a dedicated studies, but I don't really want to burn a deceit on a dedicated studies.
Yeah,
And
I would rather save it for an epiphany.
Exactly, and I don't really have any other ways of getting out of Aura Purge. So yeah, and we can see that you do have an Aura Purge. So I think I made the right decision. You just double move forward.
Also note Eric moving to the side because acknowledging that this hand is not as easily aggressive because we're missing the epiphany to get that aggressive start, and we don't feel comfortable about the dedicated studies, which usually we'd be still fine using that because we know Aura Purge is in the opponent's deck. So opting for a safer line, going to the side, buying time.
Exactly. Yeah, because if I move forward, you can always hit me for 2. And yeah, again, I don't have the epiphany, so I can't really play that aggressively. So that could be something to also keep in mind if your Bazin opponent is playing scared. Maybe you try playing aggressive, and if they're running at you, be very afraid.
Yeah.
But here I try to run at you, just kind of like give some sort of pressure, force you to do something.
Yeah. Plus, with 2 emergent worms, now you're in space to protect things a bit better, in not using the deceit and pressuring the board, and dealing with an Aura Purge.
Yeah.
So that's nice.
Yeah, and here's kind of a little example of why Tashir can kind of play the long game and outlast, because I'm using my 6 chi 11 aura summon, and you just use your 5 chi movement tech to diving juke out of the way.
Yeah.
Right, and then you just attack it. So you basically traded 1 card for card, but you traded a 5 chi for my 6 chi.
Right? Yeah.
So you're getting slightly ahead in that advantage there. So that's just always something to think about.
There's a little bit of, I guess, lost value in that I didn't get an attack off against you, but I mean, Bazin didn't get to attack me, so on Bazin's turn with the water attack. So
yeah, exactly.
Knowing when to use it and when not to, I guess.
All right. Yeah. So I drew a Chronowalker, so now I've got 2 ways of kind of getting around an Aura Purge. I want to try to get something going. Also, again, like we talked about earlier, letting people take things back. So last turn, you diving juked and then immediately attacked my Emergent Worm. We allowed you to play that Tower Sphinx. So then you just played that Tower Sphinx last turn, even though we already drew a card and exerted and everything like that.
Yeah, because if we were both thinking things through, then I would have been Tower Sphinx, then kill the Emergent Worm.
Yeah, that's something to think about.
But yeah, we want to see the decks doing their best, so important to us.
Yeah, and also I hadn't really done any move yet, so it's not like it affected my moves at all.
Okay. Here we see, the dedicated studies into the Aura Purge, into the deceit. Just wanting to craft the hand a little bit more. Unfortunately, don't see an epiphany, but I mean, sometimes that happens.
Yeah, and it's always a shame.
Yeah, and we've got a tsunami, so we've got a reasonable clean up some of this space. And Bazin's on the play, so.
Yep, and like we mentioned in both the deck tech for this deck and the tournament report, Bazin is insane going first. Being able to surround your opponent with your Emergent Worms is really strong.
Yeah, that little corner trap, it's even more dangerous for Tashir, because as we mentioned, I'm not that far from the edge, and Tashir needs that back space to be able to hit things that come close to her. He always needs to be able to retreat. Okay, pretty happy to not attack the Aura Purge here, to attack Bazin with my Tower Sphinx.
So yeah, we're probably just talking through some things. Yeah, you move back, you hit me for 2. I'm like, all right, that's fine. I think I'm just waiting for you to do your thing so that I can get my Emergent Worm down and kill this Aura Purge.
Here, I remember to play the Tower Sphinx before hitting you. See, this is why.
Yeah, and we're both running here. And I think, and this is another thing, right? So I'm gonna play this. So you're gonna hit me for 3. I'm gonna play this Emergent Worm so that I can kill this Aura Purge next turn. Oh yeah, and then yeah, I think I get a little too trigger happy with the Tsunami as well because I know you have Paris,
Mm.
and I think I'm just like, oh, I could do something about, I could, gotta kill your Power Sphinx, but yeah, we'll see what happens when it gets there.
It's always tough when, especially when there's like a good spot for hitting the opponent as well as a summon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know.
Because
It always feels good to get the hero or the champion and the summon with
yeah,
your AoEs, but it's not
yeah.
always worth it.
Because like actually it's a concept that actually I think Field doesn't get talked about, where essentially there's 2 different mechanics here, right? Like damage to a champion is fundamentally different from damage to an alteration or a summon. Like you see this kind of acknowledged in other games too, right? Magic, you'll have this only hits creatures, like 4 damage for 2 mana to a creature. Whoa, that's so good. But you don't have 4 damage to the opponent for 2 mana, or that doesn't say as
Borosharm.
play as much as
Yeah, I
I
mean
mean,
you're
in larger
100% right.
formats.
Yeah, you're 100%
Yeah.
right, and this is the whole rant for another day. That there needs
Yeah.
to be a differentiation between champion damage and summon damage.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but yeah, so here we go. Here's a kind of an example of something that happens with traps. So Aura Purge is a trigger, so I move off of it because I want to activate Bazin first, and then in response to the Aura Purge trigger, I use my Emergent Worm to kill the Aura Purge, which removes the trigger, because if the source of the trigger isn't on the arena, then the trigger doesn't happen, right? So it's
Yep.
something to think about. For your foreboding tombstones, you can move off of it and smack it. For your landmines, you can do the same. So keep that in mind, that you can. There is that trigger that you can react to.
Yeah, and like that's why they're designed as those things and they have
Mm-hmm.
abilities, so
Yeah,
that line of play is open.
yeah. So then I cast this tsunami here. I'm like, yeah, I dare you to knock me back.
I mean, I could. It just doesn't do anything, so I don't feel a
Mm-hmm.
need to.
Yeah. Although, one thing to keep in mind is, if we look at your hand, right, you have that parry, so you kind of wasted my tsunami here. But you
Yep.
also have 12 damage in hand plus your attack. You can literally kill me this turn. Provided I didn't have 2 Chronowalkers and 2 Warp Strikes.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not going to go straight for. I'm definitely going to be wary about the sequencing on those
Mm-hmm.
on those guys.
Yeah.
But we see, like, I test the waters, and there is a warp.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. I try to give you a little water smack here. And yeah, like you said, test the waters with the knockback, right?
Yeah.
I guess I still wonder why you didn't just use it on my tsunami, because then if you did, I get knocked back, but then I don't really want to warp, right? I don't want to warp strike you.
Yeah, I mean, that might just be, I think, just unfamiliarity. I
Mm-hmm.
think it also, like, since it doesn't fundamentally change the board state after.
Mm-hmm.
But
It
you
does
bring up
feel
a good
weird.
point. Yeah, like it doesn't change what's happening from the tsunami, but it does change the board state. Maybe
Yeah.
is a better way to phrase it. Because yeah, you not being near anything that you can warp strike off is actually a big deal, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah, that's always something to keep in mind. Like Bazin's warp strike targets. So like right here, so my water attack's still in the stack. So I do a play that, it was funny at the time. You were kind of almost making fun of me, but you could easily kill my emergent worm for free, and I still kind of regret not completely blocking you in. So if we look here, I kind of Chrono Walker back right in front of you to hit you for 1 and to stop you from just killing my emergent worm
yeah,
with my Chrono Walker going at the diagonal. But I always wonder, what maybe I should have just, because you still have your turn. If I had just Chrono Walkered again, trapped you in there completely, then you're kind of stuck against the wall, and that kind of like helps me with my lock, tactic or strategy. Not
yeah,
Chrono Walkering, locking you in there means that you can kind of move away, so you move to the left eventually, right? And you kind of escape. But so I know something to think about. I don't know if it's the right play because now I only have a warp strike, so you could theoretically kill me if I have nothing to warp strike off of without that Chronowalker. But you know, anyway.
Yeah, but I'll definitely have this line of play in your pocket because, like, Chronowalker, we're so used to having low health because it always comes in an attack. A
Mhm.
3 damage, 6 health summon for 6G and 17 horror is good enough
Yep.
as it is.
Hmm.
Never mind the quick and the deep going the hoy. Now the parry comes out. I've seen 2 tsunamis, so and I want to keep a diversity of threats on. And summoning parry right next to your opposing champion feels pretty good. Not
Hmm.
gonna lie.
Yep. As soon as I see that, I'm like, oh no, I made a huge mistake.
Yeah, nothing to warp strike off here.
Yeah.
Also, this arrangement, but Bazin's on the play this time, so
Yeah. So I think this is also the right play, just kind of like clearing out the Chronowalker. Yep. And so now, I'm a little worried here, right? So you move your Tower Sphinx down, you hit my Emergent Worm for 2. So
yeah,
now I'm a little worried because you can then kill it with the Tower Sphinx. So if I try to move in and attack you, you just kill it in response. If I try to run away, you can actually follow it with the Tower Sphinx.
yeah. Like I'm kind of forcing between 2 bad decisions, right? Like
Hmm.
if you go win with the worm first, then I get to activate something right next to Bazin with Bazin unable to use warp strike.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, Aura is relatively still in the middle of the game. You're at half. I'm at 66%.
Hmm.
But we're both
Kind of
low on
even.
cards.
Yeah, you're actually kind
Yeah,
of ahead.
yeah, a little ahead on Aura, like proportionally, if not literally.
We got less health. We have the same amount of cards in hands. You got one more creature, one more summon. And here's another thing, think of. So I moved down here with the intention of
Activate Bazin
using,
first.
yeah, I activate Bazin with the intention of using my Emergent Worm to kind of protect my other Emergent Worm, right? And then
Yes.
I was like, oh, and then I didn't think about the tiny that Pari has, right? So I'm here. I'm like, okay, good. I got my thing protected. You go. You try to kill my Emergent Worm. I'm like, aha, I'm gonna stop you. So I'm basically trading my 3 health Emergent Worm for my 1 health Emergent Worm. Because now your parry just flies over on top of Bazin and then kills my Emergent Worm.
Yes.
And then yeah,
Um,
you move up just because you're like talking like, oh, was it better to attack me instead? Blah blah blah. So it's just us kind of talking through some plays. Yeah, and this is kind of the example of why the parry pivot can be so good, right?
yeah. And it's just like it's an unfamiliar Tiny's an unfamiliar mechanic to play against because we haven't seen it on a permanent yet. Until parry. Like
I'm not cutting that out. That's for everyone's gonna watch you and laugh.
oh, thanks, Eric.
I'm gonna cut out me saying I'm not gonna cut it out, of course. Yeah. So then I move my Emergent Worm back, trying to protect it a little bit. Kind of debating whether I want to protect my Emergent Worm and take damage or let you kill it and not take damage. But yeah, so you get your 3 damage, and because I'm going first, I can kind of use my Chronowalker to swap. Because it'll take the 3 damage, but then it can move and immediately attack you. If I'm
Yeah.
going second, then it'll take the 3 damage, and then you immediately unexert and then kill it.
Yeah.
So something to think about. Damn,
Yep.
the
Definitely
Chronowalker and
changing.
Parry are doing a little bit of a dance right there.
Yeah. Because yeah, Parry needs to rotate twice in order to hit that.
Yeah. So yeah, so we go to the next round. My Chronowalker, yeah, immediately I want to get my attack off, get my damage in. So I hit you for 3. Attacking for 3. If you look at your hand, yeah, you just take the 3. So let's see what are you gonna do. I'd imagine you're gonna move back, go Hearty Soup and Parry, and then kill my Chronowalker.
I don't remember if I did the second parry. I might have just to get another threat because the aura has now swung firmly in my favor with those last couple of.
Yeah. Plus, you're kind of far away, so you can kind of position them so that they don't get hit by a tsunami, which I think is pretty key. And also, it's also key to that you're out of the 3 health division range. Going from 12 to 13 is like one extra card for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you get your parry going.
Yeah. So yeah, I do play the other one. And yeah, just trying to put it in a spot. I mean, Bazin can flip around so much, but we're both low on resources, 2 cards in hand, so like hopefully should be enough.
Yeah, and again, I can't. There's no place I can go that'll allow me to hit both parries right now.
Yeah, like if you have a tsunami, you need like even a Chronowalker and a tsunami doesn't let you actually hit something.
Yeah, and then I'll have nothing left after that too. Yeah. So yeah, I'm just moving here out of the way so that because I know your parry can't really kill any of my things, and what I can do because I'm going first is I can move my emergent worm up, and then immediately move it up again and try to hit you for 3. Try to get some damage out, before it dies. And yeah, you can see my hand. I've got a Cavus and a Warp Strike. I obviously don't want to get rid of a Warp Strike for the Cavus.
Yeah.
So I'm just waiting for a bad card to draw so I can play a Cavus, but
yeah, I decided to split the party here. I'm just very aware of tsunami and wanting to make it not easy for Bazin to deal with these parries. So I decided to move not quite arbitrary, but yeah, decided to move the one that's closer down towards the emergent worm.
Yeah. So I immediately attack you for 3. You I believe you diving juke here. And so I guess one thing we can talk about is when you diving juke. All right.
Where to go to?
Yeah, exactly where you're gonna go. So you end up moving to the top middle, I believe, and I had to wonder if this was the right move.
Yeah, me too. Like it's unfamiliarity. I'm just thinking maybe of spreading out everything. Maybe playing a bit too cautiously, potentially.
Well, I think this is the opposite of playing cautiously, right? Because now you're near me. Like I think if you had moved to the far away, then you have your double parries that I can't really deal with. You can kind of like run away, try to hit me when you can, and like I can't really warp strike off of them, and like I'm kind of stuck. But because you move here, you're kind of trapped against a wall, and I can try to take advantage of that, right? So
yeah,
you move here, then with your diving juke, and then you kill my emergent one with a parry.
Yep.
So yeah, what do you have in here? You have call shot or bolt shot. Yeah, so you have some decent amount of damage. And I also have some decent amount of damage with my 2 warp strikes. So I, just move in, smack you for 1. I want to get you into that divisible by 3 threshold.
Yeah, I move to the back and I get a range attack 2 off, which probably I don't use that enough.
Spoilers. There you go. Okay, now you move to the back and get your range attack 2 off.
Okay, sorry. I have to head. But yeah, probably don't use that enough, honestly. Just like I'm in love with 3 damage so much that I probably use the 2 damage enough. But yeah, trying to get a little enclosure here, if not physical, but at least damage space enclosure on Bazin with my parries.
And here's another example. So you move your parry up 1 space, try to like hedge your bet, so to speak, and then we talk about it, and I convince you to move it twice because again, parry has that action speed cast damage ability. So you actually really need to get them close to me, and this would allow you to hit my Bazin in the 3 spaces kind of in front of it, right? Next round.
Yeah.
If you didn't move it up, then you wouldn't have been able to hit me, and I'm very likely to just kind of move in and smack you again, right? So this way you can get your more damage off of.
Okay.
Yeah, so in this next round, move over. I smack you for 1, and I've got 3 warp strikes, which feels pretty good because now, right? I just need 1 more of my 3 damage burn spells, and I can kill you because you're at 12.
And even more than that, I mean, like just the 3 warp strikes plus 1 damage attack, right? Is 10, which we're only 1 turn away from that. Never mind, having to go for something more.
Yeah, exactly. That's why these like kind of 1 damage things that kind of add up over the time.
Yeah.
And also, this is why like I think it was a bad idea to dive and juke where you did, because now you're kind of stuck against the wall, and I can just keep following you around and hitting you for 1.
Yeah.
So yeah, you double move, hit me for 2. I'm like, that's fine. Keep bringing the damage. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's very much too used to using the wall as a champion to protect yourself, which Tashir can't do, which is like an odd feeling, and it needs to you kind of need to restructure what makes sense as movement with that, which definitely was learning over this game.
Yep. And as you can see, double moving that parry was good because it led to 3 damage on me. So yeah, now you kind of have this place covered. So if I want to go and attack you, you're going to hit me with your parry. That being said, there we go. Okay, there we go. I drew another burn spell. Drew an emergent worm. I'm like, all right, I got him. And this is where. So just hold on right here. If we take one little second, we talked about standard operating procedures earlier. You got to kind of think through them. You can't just do your basic thing every time. And it kind of punishes me here. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm just gonna kind of move up. I'm gonna attack you for 1, and then I can just burn you out, right? Because I have the damage in my hands. However, and this is where testing comes in, I didn't really think about warp strikes and like where you move when you warp strike, and how warp strikes interact, as we'll see. So I'm gonna go for it. I'm like, all right, he doesn't have diving juke. I didn't know that, but I was like pretty sure. So I move up, smack you for 3. My warp strike. That's warp strike number 1. I'm like, all right, cool. He takes a 3. That means I got him. Warp strike number 2. Let's go. He's definitely dead. I got him, 100%. All right. And then I'm like, oh wait. Because remember, warp is actually a move. So it's at this point in which I realized I messed up. Because if I warp strike again, get you down to 1, I can't hit you with an emergent worm. And if I emergent worm behind you, I can't warp strike behind you because I don't want to get in front of you, right? Like that's we can see in your hand, like I'd be dead if I get in front of you.
Yes.
And I'm also pretty sure if I put my emergent worm in front of you, it would die as well. It would have to, or else you would die, right? So now I'm like, oh no, I messed this up, because now I can't hit you with my emergent worm and my warp strike, so I had to do one or the other.
Yeah, I guess like the line was likely because you had the additional warp strikes in hand, to just hang out in front of me and then try and burn a warp strike.
No. The line was to, and we'll go over this, to rotate one way or the other. Because I would need to hit you with my emergent worm from behind you. So here is where how wildly important your positioning and rotation is with Bazin. If I am facing left or right, no, left preferably, and then I end up behind you, so you'll see. I'm like, oh no, I'm worried. I'm like, oh crap, I made a mistake. You can see Bazin and Pari dancing and all that stuff like that. And eventually, I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna warp strike behind you and hope you can't kill me. But if I'm facing to the left, so I make that 90-degree turn, and I end up with this last warp strike behind you, then I can emergent worm left of you and kill you. So that is how tight this game was. It all came down to me not thinking through my plays and not rotating like 1 turn. So
yeah,
it's kind of crazy. Yeah. So here we go. So I warp here. So imagine if I was facing to the left, then I could get my emergent worm out and kill Tashir. As is, Tashir's down to 1, and I'm like, all right, hopefully he doesn't have anything. So we'll see what happens.
Well,
well, for who? Yeah, I mean, true. Yeah, everyone, you can see our hands. You know how this is gonna end. Everyone knows how this is gonna end. Like it's pretty clear, right? So you,
But then yeah, this is, oh right, yeah, I'm remembering.
yeah. So you go to hit me for 3. Um, I'm like, all right, I'll take the 3. Then you hit me for 2. I'm down to 2.
Yeah.
And you still have that bolt shot in your hand. And now you have your parry that you can kind of just move, attack me. And I'm like, all right, now I'm forced to play my emergent worm to try to kill you. And then you're like, all right, bolt shot. Right. And yeah, look how fast the bolt shot got up there. Yeah. So there you go. Incredibly close game, as you can see. Get down to the wire.
Yeah,
And,
it came down to one rotation.
Yep.
Literally.
And so yeah, this is us. We're just gonna kind of talk about this, and we're both low on health. We're both low on energy. Have basically no aura left. I'm out of cards. Got 1 Cavus. So yeah, here we go. So I moved my thing back there, and this is when I realized. So this is when we're talking about it. I'm like, okay, if I had moved my Bazin and rotated him to the left, now I'm like showing my warp strikes. I'm like, okay, then I warp strike, warp strike, warp strike, end up here, and can play my emergent worm there and kill you. And that's like kind of what I'm showing right there. And so yeah,
Which is great. That's
yep,
why we test.
exactly. And this was huge. This game was great because like I was worried about Tashir going into the tournament. Never played one there, but you know it was good to test. Tashir did come up second, so it was probably a good thing to try to learn at least. And you know it was interesting learning the proper positioning, rotating like that, how to like thinking about like where you end up with the warp strikes and how that relates to your emergent worms awareness, and when to go for things, when not to go for things, saving your defensive abilities, not just trying to play super aggro with them unless you really need to go for the kill, stuff like that. I don't know. Any other thoughts?
Maybe last thought would be like, so I think probably one of the heuristics that we're used to is also to like when you've got these awesome swift speed reactions to lead off with a champion attack, because like those can react later. So why would you like go for them first? But like, so the line that Eric needed though was to like have that rotation, which means rotating, then leading with a warp strike, and then going for the champion attack later on in your turn, which is probably maybe another part of why it wasn't immediately obvious. And then they got kind of figured out when I was like, oh, like this didn't work out. How could we have done it better? And then we kind of figured it out.
Yeah, exactly. Because like after my warp strike, I could attack you anyway, and the attack didn't really matter. So that much like that at that time.
It feels like you're giving something up, right? When you lead off with like, because if they have counterplay to a card, like you feel like you've lost something more. Where if they counterplay just your activation as like, well, I get activation every turn, right? Like of my exert attack. So it's probably why we're so used to leading off with the exert attack when you got all these swifts to back it up. But here the line was actually to lead off with a swift, which is really super interesting, like a swift card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. And it's just not something because I had a couple turns in a row move to attack, and I was just like in that pattern, not really thinking through.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean some good games. I I lost them, but we're testing, so it's like it's fine. We're just trying to figure out how the games are played, how the champions feel, how the deck works, and this is kind of what you want to go through when you're testing your decks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't get too focused in on a single result also. Like a common piece of information I keep in my head is that like for any pairing, like you're realistically looking for like 20 to 30 games before you can really say that you understand how a match will go. So here we're just kind of trying to learn the interactions because I mean we have lives, we don't have time, we need to be in a testing team to hitting that 30 mark.
Speaking
Just
of testing team, let us know. Let us know.
Oh yeah, like we love games, so feel free to honk at us for a game.
Mm-hmm.
That was a subtle reference to the Canadian goose, national bird of Canada. But no,
not very subtle anymore.
But yeah, like so, like yeah, we're not going to get to 30 games testing every single possible matchup in Genesis. So the focus is more on trying to learn the play patterns and understand how things line up and learn our own decks. As you can see, multiple levels up for both of us with these two decks.
Oh yeah.
As we kind of go. I definitely wouldn't have thought of removing bolt shots for Ajna Tigers. Still not 100% sure if that's correct because they didn't show up in this game, and bolt shot did, and it felt pretty good, right?
Yeah, it's actually kind of
But
funny, right? Because in game
yeah,
2, you cut your Ashen Tigers and got one at the end, which was very helpful. And then in
yeah,
game 3, you cut your bolt shots, but the bolt shot came at the end and it was very helpful. So
yeah,
this is why one game sample sizes isn't very good to look at.
yeah. So still not sure about that, but it feels like a reasonable thing to. We get some testing data, so we'll see.
Yeah, but yeah, so both of these decks are very fun to play. The Bazin deck is especially been battle tested and proven to have done well in that circuit. So if you want to check these decks out, we have them on Coliseum of Fate. You can check the links in the description. We also have champion primers for both of these champions, and deck techs for both of these decks, so you can check out and try to learn to play them. And then you can play them in paper or in Coliseum of Fate, and let us know how you feel about them.
Plus, if you want to see another awesome Tashir deck, we'll be having an interview with the person who took Tashir to a second place finish at the Compete Sports Qualifier with a very different deck and some great card interactions and choices. So look forward to that interview and deck discussion coming up as well.
Yeah, for the one person still watching at this time. But yeah, thanks for joining us. And we'll see you in the next one.
Yeah, peace.